Alright, this is a wall in Japan, but I'm going to be showing you the walls in Peru. Very, very similar, only they squared them off more. But they did use the big chunks here and there. The ones in Peru, they did differently, but very, they're using a different type of stone too. But it was, I'm sure this was at a aponeurosis tendon primarily, although there's a lot of variation here. I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. The ones down in Peru are almost all the same, in the same areas. Well, okay, my friends, we're going to run through a whole batch of pictures. I'm just going to refresh you that everything there is in you that has a tendon, a strap, has a ball on the end. These are the cord style tendons. They come down and then they anchor into the bones and so forth with all these balls and straps. Every strap has a ball. Now there's other styles that go in between the bones, which are the ligaments, and they work a little bit different. And then there's aponeurosis tendon, which is a flat tendon. So let's look at the aponeurosis. All right, here's the aponeurosis. But first of all, remember I showed you the cord-like. That's what you have in your Achilles tendon. And when they rupture and they break, you get what's called a wrinkle zone. You see this? That's the wrinkle zone. And it's because they're under tension. They're always holding tight like that. That's what keeps you held together, literally. And when they snap, poing, they come apart quite a bit because they're under tension. And then you get that wrinkle zone. And that's what you see at the top of Devil's Tower, is that wrinkle zone. And other than that, you have all these fibers. And then at a certain point, you have what they call an abrupt transition from the fiber into the muscle. And the muscle gives a big, and the tendon does nothing but just barely move. That's why that's the really springy part of your body, is the tendons. Now let's look at the aponeurosis, which is the flat tendon. And here it is. It's anytime you see the white, it's tendon, and it's that same stuff, connective tissue, only this is flat, and then it has these balls locked in. And it's all over your body in different places, but it's where your core muscles, your core is, and your muscles here that, you can, when you scream like that, that's what that's what it is. Now, what does it look like up close and personal? This is what it looks like. These are those mats of the white stuff. And this is just too small. They don't show it because you need a scanning electron microscope to see it. So on those mats, these little stalks come out and they go through a little tiny hole. You see the hole right here? You see the hole? The hole? They come down like that and they anchor into the flesh or whatever is underneath, the bone or whatever it is. And then your body can move around, and this will be able to move a little bit because it's got, it'll puff up and it'll stretch, puff up and it'll stretch. And that's what gives you the ability to work those the core muscles. You can't work them without tendons. You have to have a tendon. If you have a muscle, you have a tendon. Case closed. There is no muscle without a tendon. It just doesn't happen. And the tendon is a little bitty give part, and that's one here, and this is locked in the center, and it splays out. And you can see that it is a tendon and it has a slurpee in it. So you see it? You see that little stuff running through here? I call that the slurpee. It's small, leucine-rich proteins, and these blocks slide against each other in these proteins. It's just the way they're built. And that's biology, my friends, and it's turned into stone. All right, so don't forget, these are the different styles: the aponeurosis, the rope style, the abrupt transitions, all these balls, these kind of balls, and then there's also the interstitium. Let me just show you that. All right, this is the other style, is the interstitium, which is a pretty new thing. They didn't realize it was there. because when they got it in the autopsy, it was flat like a pancake, all glued together, and they thought it was just a fused together layer. It's not. It's constructed of all these tiny little balls with straps and bags of fluid. And when you're alive, you can move and do all this stuff, and you come back to where the balls are. When you're dead, all the fluid goes out of it, and it looks like a flat, really fibrous mat. That's what they say. And this only in 2018, they called this a new organ. And these are all these little balls. Now, that's what they are right here. These are interstitium balls. And I believe they came out of a creature with like this. And then there's mud down here. I'll be showing you this closer. This is in the United Kingdom, Hunstanton Cliffs. And that's the mucosa or the fascia or the skin, and below that is the fleshy part, and all the balls were in there. They eroded out, and all of this is just mud, because the fleshy stuff erodes into mud. The balls come down, and that's what it was here if it was living. You see it has that layer up at the top. It has all the fleshy stuff here, and they're all balls drop down to here, and the red fleshy stuff obviously turns into something, which happens to be mud. All right, so now that's all the different styles of things that I'm going to show you. Now we're going to run through all the stone balls and all the tendons, and I mean I have a ton of them, so let's get started. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Again, that's Sam Asselgowich, and this is the attachment to the strap from one of the balls. They all have a ball and they have a strap. That's just the way it works. Now, this is not, I believe this is actually an eyeball. You see how many different little tiny layers it has? That's not typical of a tendon ball, and it also has a pinch on this side and a pinch on that side. And I believe all of these are the different layers of the eyeball. I mean, it's just a very, very amazing structure, an eyeball. This, look at the size of this thing. I believe this is all, and they're all down here. You see them running on the side here? These big, they're in here. This thing here was probably the last one. And some of them are structured like this. At the very end, they have one big anchor, and then they have a whole batch of them on the sides. We're just dealing with this kind of stuff. And some of them have this kind of a webbing inside. And I believe those are made so that they can do a little bit of this and that. Or maybe it's just structural to lock it in so solid that it's just no way to pull it out. And I believe that's where the attachment was on that. This, I don't know, it looks like, you know, and they have these kind of blocks inside. I think I have some other ones to show. Yeah, Lee Simpson sent me these. And this is what it looks like inside of some of them when they erode in this particular manner, which is what we just saw on that other one a second ago. And this I can't account for, no clue whatsoever what's going on, why that's such a certain exact. But, you know, they could do this thing with the cutting back and forth and so forth. I don't know how polished it is in between, but you could actually do that with just a piece of rope almost. It could have been all attached at one time, I don't know. But these two things here are more than likely some kind of like bones that attached, you know, that type of thing. I know that that's kind of anchors. Those are anchors. They don't. It's not going to sit there all by itself like that if that was not a tendinous type of connective tissue, which is very, very strong. It's like those basalt columns. It's very similar. It's got that kind of strength. These are just a little tiny ball. What do we got here? Oh, that's a ball in a wall. And they're all over the walls. This is all flesh. That's just into the flesh. And then you got this style here. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's some kind of an organ, I believe. That's the way I would go with that, some kind of organ tissue. And these are like the Moki marbles. And some of them have this style here, and that's like just almost like iron on the outside. Very hard. And some of them have turned to opal on the inside. Depends on where they were. It's all about the conditions they were in when they were in this flood. Were they near a lot of transition metals, which are all the different colors? This is literally skin. This was some kind of skin. All right, and the clay is what it is. Is when you see the clays, you're in the skin, and the strap would have come into here, and that's why your skin can pull this way and that way, and it all comes back to where the ball's locked in. These, I don't know. That actually could be a ball. I'm not kidding you. They were that big. These, I don't know. These are up in Canada somewhere. They look like fruits or something. Although, I don't know. Look at the top of that thing. I can't account for that. They could be some kind of organs. This is just another oddball looking thing. Nobody can account for these things. This somebody, I'm sure, carved that. That does not look like it. You know, it's too much. I'm not going with that one. Is real. These, as you saw those kids playing in those ones that had all these different colors in them. This is just slices. They sliced through them and made really exotic looking plates out of them. Scientists are baffled by these eggs. They call them eggs. These are the Moki marbles. These are those I showed you those little black balls. These are up on Mars. They call them the Mars blueberries. And Mars is covered with biology, absolutely covered. And this is what they look like, and just somebody piled up a hand, a bunch of them. They were all over the place. Here's another tendon. Here's the strap that came into that tendon. Broke right off here. Normally they detach right on the edge. This one just happened to be that size. And you see it right there? Normally just the skin comes off. This one broke here. And that one there is... I'm not sure what that was attached to, but I mean, they're all over. There's so many of them. I could go on for days and weeks and months doing this. And I have. I've gone on for years, actually. And this is where they're cutting slabs out of them. More cutting. Building Stonehenge or the like. Listen to this. This is the heel stone at Stonehenge. It's a foot. Stonehenge is completely made from body parts of giants. That's a foot. You see that little spot there and that little spot there and up at the tips of the toes? Those are called the terminus, where your terminal from the artery comes over to the veins and comes back up. This is no question that's a foot. And that, I believe, is the black blood, the vein. And there would have been, there was another foot here they called the twin stone. I don't know, it got removed at one point. This is how they normally break off those things right there. The other one broke off right up here, the one with that girl was standing in front of it. So that's kind of unusual. Look at this. This is a fingertip. This is literally the fingernail. That's the tip of the finger. Now this, I don't know what it is, but I see this red and black, and I think this is the bottom of a foot or something. That right there goes in between bones, so they don't scrub on each other. One bone here on one side, there on the other. So when you bend them, they don't get destroyed. So this was probably a variety of giants, and they moved these stones and erected them here. They didn't die doing it this way. Somebody erected this as a memorial, quite obviously. But there's a lot of things you could look at here. to study. It's not just a bunch of rocks, but they are meaningless. And whenever you see a lot of moss growing out of things, that's because there was some blood there. Okay, I think I showed you the Stonehenge foot, which is the heel stone, and it's a foot. And that's what was going on at Stonehenge. It was just a monument to the giants. Now, this, I just want to make sure you remember this. I got interrupted a couple times, so I can't remember where I was. Now, I'm going to go from here up to the stone balls, to the tendons. All right, so you got a pretty good idea of what all these stone balls are, and they're all over the body, and when they're in different places, they're different kind of stone balls. That's all I can tell you. And they are in the feet, and in the bones, and in the aponeurosis, and the stomach, and the shoulders, and everywhere. So they're all different types of balls, and they're all different types of straps, and they're all aligned in different ways. Some of them are perfectly straight like this, some of them flare out, some of them have an attachment in the center and pivot on them, and it's just, the body is exceptionally designed. Okay, let's cruise through them. These are tendon fibrils, and this is leaking probably some kind of an organ, because you see all this yellow and all that nasty looking stuff. That's some kind of bile or who knows what. Now, we've got, this is what you see when you see the tendons coming up, and then this is literally the glue. It's glue. It's as flat as a pancake, and it glues it to the muscle. And it's unbelievable, but it just is the way it is. And they break off like this as an abrupt transition. You can see where it's red right there. These are muscle fibers, and they come in sarcomeres, which is little bundles like that. One side is real red and one side is gray. You see it? And they break straight across. They're in like little straight bundles, and they just bundle them up and sell them like that. This is just abrupt transitions. All right, this is the splayed one that I showed you with the stuff right in between them. That is the Slurpee. That's what makes it stay sort of together, but it's still sort of a mat together. This is a big splayed tendon. All right, what do we got next here? All right, these are just show some the transitions and what it looks like, and how they have like little blocky things, and they change different molecular structure as they come down and insert into the bone and flare out. It's very interesting, you know, and again, they change in different areas. Now, you remember I showed you that before, those tendons sticking straight up and then all that really gnarly looking stuff? That's this right here, same thing. And there's that all gnarly stuff, and then it goes into a muscle up here. Muscle attaches, and the muscle is weak and goes away. These two are very, very tough. Tendons are tough, and the glue is just as tough, if not tougher. It's certainly not weaker than the muscle is the weak stuff. Now, this right here, this is how it happened. If you know Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures, he's out on the west coast in Oregon. A guy named Scott Wiles, nice guy, gets a hold of me. He's out walking with his dog, and he sees this, and he says, he gets a hold of me. He said, "What do you think this is?" And I said, "Well, to me it looks like an abrupt transition from a tendon, either like a bone here or whatever this is, and then you got the glue, and then you would have had the muscle probably, or the tendon, whatever it was. But this is that gluey spot in between." So Tyson saw this, and he's right down the road from there. He gets a hold of Scott, and they go out and they're doing some research together. Now you see this black spot here? You see the red spot over here? That's what you have when you have blood servicing something. You have the red and you have the black. And so anyway, Scott has been moving around and given a lot of input, really helpful. And Tyson's been out here doing a lot of work, looking through all of whatever's out here, and there's a lot out there. All the body parts are there. It's just that this happens to be a tendon sticking up in the air. And that's the only reason it's here, because it's so tough. It's the tough stuff. All right, so anyway, like I said, Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures, he's been looking into this, got a drone, he's checking into these giant body parts, and there is no way to deny it. You just can't deny it. It's been, they just don't want to talk about it. Now this is what Achilles tendon looks like. And that's really like the heel bone, and that's that really heavy-duty tendon. And they snap somewhere up around here. And there's an abrupt transition. It's probably that right there, right along that little crease. It just happens. There's abrupt transitions in everything in your body, and muscles and everything. Now, don't forget what that looked like. Now, don't forget they have a wrinkle zone when they snap and open up like this, and they have to pull them back together and put in some kind of whatever they do, sutures, and make them spring back together. But once they pop open, I mean, they just spring open, and you get that abrupt transition, wrinkle zone. Whoops. And believe it or not, Devil's Tower is only this, right down here, right down around here, up to about here somewhere. All of this stuff has eroded away. This weak stuff. Bones did not do well in the flood if they were exposed. Trees did not do well in the flood if they were exposed. Tendons and flesh and all that stuff did very well because it was all real salty and stuff. Salty and bones in a warm solution, they dissolve. And the same thing with cellulose. If it's warm and it's alkaline, they'll dissolve, and that's salty waters. All right, so what you're left with is that abrupt transition and this. That's Devil's Tower. I'm telling you, it's amazing, but... All right, this is the way tendons come down. There's so many fibrils in there that it's just staggering. Every one of these little dots is one of these things here. I mean, these little dots here. You see, they come down and they make into these, and then these dots come out to make into these, and you have these dots, and those dots make into these dots, and then you have the end of the little fibers. They don't even show the balls. I don't even know if they really paid that much attention to that they exist or not. But they're showing the fibrils. These are all the fibrils coming down. See fibrils? All right, and here they have the collagen fibers. And back up here, it's, up in this area, it's a little more dense. It just keeps filtering down until you get down to the tiny little, tiny fibers. But they're not even showing the balls. On every one of those, there's a tiny little ball. All right, I showed this before about the difference between the rope-like, and which is the tendon, and the ponerosis. Regular tendon is rope-like. The other ones are the sheets. They're both tough as hell, and I think I went over this plenty, and I show injuries and all that stuff of everything. Let's see. All right, I showed you this is the mat, and these are the balls lock in wherever, so the muscle can pull against it. If you got nothing to pull against, it's not going to work. This, I think, is a bone, but I'm not sure what it is, to be perfectly honest with you. But it attaches to this. I don't know what it is. I have to be honest with you. I do not know. I'd like to see more of what's down here and so forth. But the fleshy stuff eroded. It depended where it was. I'm going to show you Arches National Park. It's just stunning. All right, here's where you got the tendons. And you see moss grows on the tendons. And you see the little wavery stuff come out. They snap. That's kind of interesting. Now there's obviously some really heavy duty fibrous thing coming up in there that's just not supposed to. It's solid now and it's not going to give. Looks like it to me. It looks like it's off balance. This should go, but it's hard to tell you the perspective. But some of these things, it's amazing. And again, I think I've shown this many times, how inside of the bones you have all the balls attached to the straps. The same thing in the ligaments. Basically the same deal. And then you've got the other type of tendons. This I don't know what exactly that is, but it's some kind of tendon ball, it appears. Very unique. Somebody carved that, I'm pretty sure. Geo carved. But let me look at that again. I'm going to show you something now. You say, oh, somebody just carved that. Yes, they did. But what about this? They didn't carve that. They didn't carve that. This was a tendon ball at some point. Now, it was probably completely agatized. And then this was carved here. But you can even see there's some spot in the center here that they couldn't get to carve. But this is not, he didn't carve that. He didn't carve any of this stuff. He carved what this was in the center. So this is very interesting. If you really look at it and you understand what you're looking at. That was the cord coming in. And that's what they did. If they were in a certain type of environment where there was a lot of transition metals and it was in a certain pH and temperature and how long it stayed wet and how the invasion happened, but primarily though it's the transition metals, what was there in the environment, and then they created opals or this like an agate, which is basically an opal, almost identical. All right, these are some balls in the clumps. And then again, these are probably in different clays, kaolin clay and bentonite clay. And they're embedded in there because that's where the skin was. And it just eroded away except for this particular area for some reason. And that I can't explain why they'd be sticking up like that. But the tendons must be coming down in a certain way. This is the inside of a gigantic tendon ball, I believe. They have fibers just like that. And this is the ceiling. And these are the fibers that are the crystals that grow inside of certain types of tendons. And I think I have some shots of that. Hold on. All right, this one here, they can't figure out what they think they're eggs. I think that's what they were talking about, the wall growing eggs. I've shown this, I'm sure, a number of times where it breaks off. Sometimes they break off here. Sometimes they have two fibrils coming in. And sometimes they have just one in the center. I'm pretty sure. There's a whole batch of different ones. I've shown you, they're not all the same. So, I mean, I don't know which ones they're looking at or how many they've looked at, but I've seen basically probably all of them that exist. This, I don't know, look at that thing. This is all eroded, fleshy stuff. This is protecting this from eroding. That's what's happened here. This is gigantic, fleshy clays. All right, I showed you the one with the ball and the two stalks sticking out. That's it right there. Basically, that's the same thing. Now, this one here, where do you see this? All right, this is Arches National Park. Do you remember the mat I showed you that was sticking, the strap was sticking down through and a ball was pulled out of the muscle and so forth, or the bone underneath? It was on the flat aponeurosis tendon. This one here, all of that stuff eroded away, and it left the strap and the ball. All right. On the other one, all of this stuff was here, and the ball pulled out from there. It was still attached, but it pulled out from the socket that it was in. So whatever was here eroded away and left the ball and the strap attached. Now, remember they were in a row, boom, 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 boom. Here's one right here. This one just broke off flat right here. That's where the center of it is. Remember I said some of them have one little hole in the center and some of them have two. This is the kind that has one. And you see that strap? This is just incredible. Now, again, this is all fleshy stuff. And for some reason, I don't know why, the chemistry here ate away whatever this was down below, whether it was flesh or bone or whatever it was, and it left this. Now, you can see there's other ones here. You see that? That's another ball here. There's a ball here. There's a ball over here. They're all over the place. There was another ball right there, I'm sure. And this one here broke off. I would say that one went down to here, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it went to here. But point being is, that is the one that pulled out of that mat. All right, and here's the mat. And there's the ball that pulled out. Now, all of this stuff down here, this was locked in and everything was fine. And that stuff eroded away and left the ball exposed and the strap. So it was a unique situation that it ended up going that way. All right, the other one just popped right out. So anyway, that's this. These creatures were astronomically large. And this here, I don't know what happened here. I think somebody might have made that. I don't know. That's the strangest one I've ever seen, but I've seen a lot of strange ones. All right, that I believe is from a ligament, and that's inside one of the balls of the ligament area, and then you have that little neck going into the other side, and they're tight. They are tight, those ligaments. And I showed you what they look like in the anatomical, and that is it right there. There's just tendon balls on the walls. They're all over the place. That's China. I think that's China too. Like I said, they're everywhere. They're just everywhere. And that was the one that Scott Wiles talked to me about and sent me the pictures of. And you can see the little tendon fibers. The tendon fibers are coming right up from that glue. It's very cool. And we got a guy named Tyler sent me this one. And that's where there's an abrupt transition from something to the glue. I got so many people send me stuff, it's just, and I can't remember probably 99% of them, and all they do is get sent pictures most of the time. Now that's where probably it popped off, and it took a little more than normal. But this is an eggshell looking one. And like, again, they're just all, so many varieties of these things. It's amazing. And of course, there's the basalt columns. And this one here I showed, again, when they come up, way up like this, higher up, away from the water, they break. Now, they look like they're in blocks down here and were in the water much longer and didn't separate. Remember how I told you the higher up they are, the more they separate? I think that might have been the water zone for a very long time. And these are ones just separated, and these were still, I don't know, I'm just guessing. But I think those might be muscle sarcomeres and not tendon fibrils. Could go either way. All right, this is just a whole bunch of jargon about what is what. The vessels that feed the things, and these are the tendons, and they're tough. They don't take much blood. This is when they lock into the bone, but they're showing all the little fibrils, and they're showing the abrupt transition. They're showing it's going into the bone. But when it gets onto the other side of the bone, inside the bone, that's when you have all those little balls. And this is how they break in the tendons and so forth, and how it locks into the bone, but it doesn't really show. You don't see a whole lot of detail about how tendons work. That's just another bit of biology. Whoops. All right, that looks like 2 feet out in the desert. This here, I don't know what's going on here. I don't have much details on it, but it does look like some kind of an organ to me. Because there's so many little bits and pieces in the organs. Look at that. Can you imagine to do that? And that probably would have been the artery going straight up the middle. That's staggering. That's just beyond belief to me, to see something like that. This, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's got fibers to it. I don't know if those were ribs or something. I don't know. It could have been. Like I say, a lot of things survived in a lot of different ways, and it would depend on if it was a real cold environment, they might have survived better. Now these are all transition metals. Anytime you see all these different colors, that's transition metals. And for some reason, I don't know what this is, but it looks like it's probably, you can see all the fibers. And that's, I'm sure the different colors are from the blood. And blood is blue and red, basically, in the body. Now, it looks to me like it retains some of those colors, but only enhanced them quite a bit. We saw that about a dozen times. Tendon columns. This is connective tissue, and then this stuff that's running off of it here. All of that is running off of fibrils, and that's why you see you see how perfectly positioned they are here. Those are some kind of secretions of enzymes or whatever. And they're stacking up in this geometric pattern. And that's in caves. When he's going to these caves, you see all these exotic looking patterns flowing all this way and that way, and yellows and oranges and greens and all this. That's biology. That's the different secretions of the different organs within the body, and that's why there are cavities in there. Now this is, looks like somebody was working there. That didn't just happen by accident. What they were doing there, I don't know. It looks like they were digging things out of there. Nobody knows anything about this stuff. They see that stuff and they run away. Look at this. Oh, that's not natural weathering. The kids are sliding down tendons. You see, these are tendons from a gigantic Achilles tendon. I have other shots of this. They got some kind of footprints going up the side here of that mountain straight up. Looks like to me. I think these are muscle sarcomeres. You see these little strips coming up like here? Now, are those footprints? I don't know. They sure look like it. But you see this? This is here. This is going straight up. Now, how the hell did that happen? I can't account for that, but I tell you, it looks like these are muscle strips, and these are the sarcomeres in the muscle. They look exactly like that. All these little strips, and then they're divided into bands. He's going up to look at these dinosaur prints up on the side of the mountain there. You know, up the side we just saw a second ago. Now, I don't know, they don't look like footprints to me, but I don't know. I don't know how I would have got there. Now, here you go right there. Remember I showed you the glue and the tendon? The tendon comes up, the glue is right there. That's glue. Up above that, I don't know what was up there. Something was up there, a bone or what? I would say a bone. So you had a bone to the glue to the tendon. The tendon runs down to a certain point and attaches to muscle. Now, it could go the other way around. It could be the bone is way down there, the tendon's coming up, the glue, and the muscle went that way. That's also possible. This is, no question in my mind, that's an artery or a vein, and that's the other one right there. I would say that's the artery because it's bigger, and that's the vein. They'd be smaller. So that's my take on that one right there. Now, remember I showed you that cave where it had all those crystals in there? There it is right there. That's what happens inside these entheses as it grows. And these are all the different alignments of the crystals, and then you end up with these crystals inside, and they call this the tendon enthesis. What we got next? Growth plates, physics, Ephesus, whatever. This is another one of these big arching things. Now, whether it looks to me like it's the same as the one out in Arches National Park there. It's a ball attached, and then that went through something like that. It just is another one about the tendon. That one there, I'm not sure what's going on, but it looks like, I don't know. I I don't know. You know, why pretend I know when I don't know? Remember I told you they take them out in blocks. They just pick them up and they bundle them up. They break almost perfectly flat. They don't have to cut those 90% of the time. You know, I mean, they can make them perfect if they want, but they don't have to cut them. Showed that dozens of times. Fibers, fibers. All right, you see the tendons here? Tendons aren't just straight one shot either. They have little tiny fibers in them as well. I don't know if you can see that or not. You see the fibers in them? When you get way, way, way down into the fibrils, that's when you can see those little tiny, but in these creatures, way down doesn't mean way down. It means you just, you know, they're only a couple of feet. But this here, that's the key. You can see there's fibers. And they say they're traced to a determined length, whatever that means. But this is electron microscopy. This is serious down into the close lookup. You see this? These are the tendon fibrils. And you see the wrinkle zone over here? That's where they snap and they were released tension. These are up on Mars. Same stuff. Exact same stuff. Mars has identical same stuff as we do here on Earth. All right, these are some of the fibers. These guys are climbing up Devil's Tower. That's the size of these fibers. Saw that enough times. That one there, another one that's got one of these heavy-duty tendon fibrils stuck down in there, and she's not going to go. So it is amazing. You'd think it is snap, but some of them are so tough. All right, this is a GIF. All right. They're saying this is how these metamorphic rocks do this and so forth. They have no clue what they're talking about on that. This, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I would say this could be a tree. I really don't know. I normally wouldn't say that, but I don't see the blood and so forth, which I would expect to see for a foot. But I also don't see it looking like a normal tree either, because it sort of goes off and way off like this, like it's heading off this way. I don't know. I can't make any determination about this. I really can't see anything to go 100% either way. Let's go with that. This is some form of it could be an artery even, or a vein, who knows. Apparently this was all here. And they built on top of it. I don't know. That could be, but maybe not. But I don't think this was constructed by anybody. This was a natural thing, and they took advantage of it as sort of a fortification or something, I guess. All right, these are the slurpy layers. Now, this is like, I think, sort of fatty tissues. And, you got a lot of fatty tissue, and then you got a lot of blood servicing it, bringing the fats in and taking it back out again when you need them. This was from a guy, Sib Sibley, that sent me this, or I just absconded it, one or the other. I can't remember. But this is all, that's one localized tendon entices, and they all spread out from there. So that's really where it locked in. Everything's got to be attached solidly, or that's when you get, first of all, you get pains, and then you get injuries. Now this is just more collagen fibrils, tendons, da 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 da. This is where the hip, and this Comet 67P is right here. It's broken right off there, exactly like that. And that whole thing is out there in space. Comet 67P. As a matter of fact, I'll show you just to verify it. Remember, it's broken off right there. And this is what we're going to see. Right here. You see that? That's the hip bone. Just like I just showed you before a second ago. And this is it from a different angle. And there's a huge, huge artery over here. It's 500 feet across. And that's being cooked and shooting off gases of cooked meat. And that's what the space guys say when they go out on spacewalks and they come back in, their suits smell like steak. I'm not kidding you. And that's exactly what that would do. Now that's the artery, so we've got a ton of it coming out. These are the blood vessels, just little ones, wherever the blood vessels went to. And again, this was one assembly that was the hip socket. Right? And this is out in space. This was all true what they wrote about the giants, and they witnessed this from Earth, they say. In Velikovsky's accounts from everywhere around the world, they said they could see these gigantic battles in the heavens. And then they dropped it from history because it was too spectacular. Right now, you talk about this. You should have seen the assaults I got today. Absolutely unbelievable, a number of assaults. Literally hundreds, about 500, and I'd say 90, at least 95 or more percent were attacks without ever even looking at the information. I was showing things, saying, what do you think of this? You're an idiot. Yeah, get out of here, you psycho. You know, I mean, it went on and on, very nasty. And they were quite thrilled with themselves, but I have to understand that this is way too hard for some people's minds. It is. It's a very difficult thing. All right, so I showed you this is it. And this is it, Comet 67P, and this was the balls and the straps, all that big stuff I just showed you. Now let's go back to the picture. See the ball and the strap? The ball and the strap. This thing here is that thing there. All right, these are some more tendons in Iceland. Wherever you see this red rusty stuff coming down, that's where red blood was. Blood is almost all made with iron. And there's two types. There's a red and then there's black. When it's in the open atmosphere, it turns black. In your body, it's red and blue. The red just stays pretty much red. Now, you can see that's pretty much red. Now, this blue indicates there was some kind of an organ around here that's putting minerals or whatever it does, enzymes or whatnot, into this water. All right, that whenever you see these different colored water, it's not different color for no reason whatsoever. All right, tendon lady. Now this here, nobody knows. That's the gluey stuff. And what it was stuck to, who knows? They think it was a person's face, some woman's head. I don't think so. I would say nope to that one. But you just honestly, you never know now. You really got to pay attention and see. Now remember I told you how they just break flat like that? These are selenite. Now I have selenite here too. And they have abrupt transitions. As a matter of fact, let me get it. You see the abrupt transition? You see it right there? And that's the gluey stuff. Remember I told you they have all kind of glue? Well, this, in selenite, everything in the selenite gets washed out. Every little bit of minerals. And it just turns into this glassy look. But where there's an abrupt transition, the blood in the glue is very tenacious. You can see some little catchy stuff on this too. That's selenite. Now here's where it's going to start getting good. This is the tendon mats. You see the size of these mats? That's what those bumps are where those balls went in. The balls are still inside of here somewhere. And they break off the snap right up the top of the mat. I showed you before. And I got a lot of them to show you. Look at that. Now, I think this is probably a little enhanced with the color. I don't know for sure. But this is somewhere, I think they call it the colored desert or something over in China. And this is tendon. That's a tendon mat. That's the mat type tendon. And you see all those different stripes in there are because there's different layer-ish fibers in there. There's different types of collagens. That's just one of the balls. And this would be in skin. All right, remember the colored one in the desert? Or wherever it was in China? That's just basically that. And they would separate. Remember there was like a little layerish looking things. That's where they would separate on that. But all those fibers, every fiber would have a different color depending upon what it was made up of for chemistry. I showed you the transition metals, right? These here. This is the key. In your body, these are the transition metals. These are the colors, and they present in certain ways. A lot of times when they bond, you never see them. They just look like dirt or whatever, or some kind of rock or basalt. So you don't really see anything other than stone. However, sometimes you see all the colors. And that's because they're transition metals. And the more blood, the more transition metals, the more colors. So your heart, your lungs, liver, arteries, veins, and then you have secretions from organs, which is like bile and gallbladder and in your urinary system and all kind, everywhere you have different chemistry, so you're going to get different results. And it depends where these end products are. If they're close to where there's a lot of metals, they'll take on a lot of color. Like I have stuff here that you can't even tell it's hardly dead. I'm not kidding you. This here, just put a little water on here because it makes them look good real quick. Right there. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's basically like a red piece of meat. So my point is, wherever it is like this here, there's nothing there. Everything's gone. The only thing left here is a little bit of bloody, gooey, the glue that holds the tension. That's why that's abrupt transition. They were just as abrupt as can be. That's not an accident that you see that line there. All right, so that's why sometimes you get colors, sometimes you don't. I thought I showed you that before, but just to be sure. So once again, just so you remember, all these different colors here are because there's going to be different molecules of chemistry in that mat. And they're going to take on these different transition colors. Right? When you're alive, it's almost all bloodiness. But when you die, they want to get stable. And that's when they take on and bond with one of those metals. All those metals are in here. But all you're seeing is primarily the blood, which is just all one mix of all that stuff. When it stabilizes, they migrate out and find partners to attach to. And that's why you get all kinds of different fibers looking different colors, as you just saw. And These are how fine these fibers are. I mean, they're just as fine as you can. This is probably an electron microscope, I don't know. But it's going to be extremely. You see this? This is the same thing here. These are all electron microscopes. Looking at these fiber bundles, they're tough, 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 and tougher. Toughest, tougherest. Here's some more micros. They're showing different temperatures and da da da. Some microscopic tendon fibers. Remember I showed you they're blocky, but they're not too blocky. They're tight. They're very tight. Look at that. That's some kind of I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to really get up there, look close at it, and check everything else out. But from all I can see right here, I'm sure it's connective tissue. What it's connecting to, is that an abrupt transition? And why would it come way under? Oh, you know what? Well, never mind. I would just be speculating. Let's leave that one alone. This just shows you how they come down in their own little fibrils, and then they attach to these fibrils. And there's an abrupt transition. I mean, they break off very, very flat. Same thing here. All right, now check this out. I showed you the Achilles tendon, and it just came right down. This is an Achilles tendon. I'm 100% sure of that, in my own opinion. Now, they were cutting slabs off of this and moving them down here to make these walls. And they made a lot of them. They're everywhere. Now, what's going on over there? I don't know. It looks like probably housing. Who knows? But they are everywhere. And it came off of this stuff, which is the tendon. That was that Achilles tendon I showed you before. Go back and look back at it again if you want. But that's what that is right there. Now, they were cutting slabs off of there. Look at that one. You know, a lot of times you look at stuff and you say, boy, that does look like wood. But I'd be surprised if it is. But I can't discount that either. I don't know. Pretty tough wood if it is. Now look at this. Look at this. This is not an accident. All of those little blocks are, I believe, sarcomeres, muscle fibers, and tendon. You see how it's running off perfectly here and here? You see how they're water, 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 water. This is where the blood, I mean, it must be the wet season, and it's pumping the blood up really high. This is, all this greenery here is because this is a lot of blood. That was some kind of giant, probably a foot. That's what I would go with. You know, look at this cut out here, this cut out here. It looks like the same thing going on the other side. It's hard to tell, but I can tell from these blocks that it is, and from the waterfall. Why should water be falling off here like this? Waterfall's coming out. It's because it's got water pumping up through. It's an artery. And this is in Roraima, Venezuela. And I say that's a giant tendon, giant foot, something like that. Look at that. Remember we talked about the wrinkle zones? This is a tendon from a primate. These here, who knows? Peru, they did this stuff. Egypt, they did a lot of that stuff. This stuff was wet right after the Great Flood, and they were just dealing with these putty bodies. This is a... This gives you an idea of how tendons come down and they lock in. That was ripped out. Scanning microscope of tendons. They try to tie it back together, see it? They're literally just tie a knot in it. More scanning stuff. There's that selenite, same as what mine is here. Same thing. Same thing there, selenite. All right, this is a tendon. All right, and you don't have to see this. This is the anatomy and the sheath and so forth. Forget about that. Look at that. Whew. Can you imagine? Yikes. Not for me. Nope. It's amazing what people have done. Now, there's the Achilles tendon. All right? So here's the calcaneus, which is your heel bone. And out comes that Achilles tendon. And that was all those fibers that I was showing you before. This, I don't know who sent me this. This is tendons in space. I don't know where that came from. All right, see this? These kids are sliding down an Achilles tendon. This is down in Peru or somewhere. You see, that said they buffed it up and they're sliding down it. That's the fatty tissue, I believe. Some more of the fatty tissue. All right, these are the fatty tissues in the body. And then you got tendons, tendon fibers, tendons, fattier tissues, which I just showed you, basically all of these things. And here's a wrinkle zone tendon. See this? That's the Achilles tendon. And they cut the steps off of there. And they built these walls back here with some kind of technology. And they had machines here. I can show you that too. This right through, all the way up right there is some kind of a tendon. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an anal system or something, and this is where it dumped out. I don't know. I have no idea. But I'm telling you one thing. It's unique. Whatever it is. That, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I don't want to speculate, but certainly biology. That's the tendon again. I got a lot of those. That's the abrupt transition. There's nothing but a Achilles tendon. Here's one look. It's a four-wheeler. This thing here is twisted up like that. It's some kind of muscle. And you see how it erodes out in the cheap stuff? This is the cheap stuff. This is not the cheap stuff. This is the tough stuff. The white stuff is the connective tissue. You see it? The white stuff does not erode like the colored stuff. This is here in my shop. This is a tendon, and it has like actual like looking teeth. You see this? It's got a ball that locks it in. Remember I showed you the other one that had all those crystals? Well, this is upside down, but if I turned it around, these would be the spikes coming down from up above, and the strap went right through there. And these are all the spikes, and it's, you know, it's eroded out of here so you can see that, but they are in there. Whoops. That right there is blood and flesh, and you know, and it's just, you know, that's, I think, a membrane right there. I think this is a bilipid membrane right between here that separates your outer flesh and stuff from your down inside flesh, the membrane. That's mine. You see right here how they show the tibia insertion? They don't even show the balls at the end here. They just show like they think they're little fibers, I think. I'm not sure they realize how intricate it is. Now here's the, again, look at this. These are very, very perfectly cut. I mean, look at this. That's not an accident. This is very, very, very advanced removal of, and again, it was soft when they did this, and I can prove that as well, because the equipment sunk in right like here. You see this? They had equipment here. You see that? You see the tire tank tread looking things? And this sunk right in. And they cut those slabs, they brought them down here and made walls. And this one here is eroding away. I have better shots of that. Here's another tire track. You see that? Going right over the top of this tendon. It's like a big four-wheel drive looking tire track. And it had to be wet when it did that. Because these are hard. When they set up, whoo-hoo, they are hard. They turn really hard. Now, look at this. This is down in Fuerte de Sempiata, Bolivia. Now, what do we got here, my friends? Well, we can see something's been cut out of here, so let's start for that. Now, what do we see here? Something sunk into whatever this was, and it was apparently moist, at least at the time. And these little tire track looking things look to me like they could be like tank treads. Now, the problem is, I don't see this thing getting driven up to here. It's on this hill, and it looks like it was dropped right down there. Unless it drove up with these tank treads and then dropped these down in so that it wouldn't move. It was like anchors, as anchors maybe. And I don't know, maybe these are holes. I don't know. Did it drive in on these? I don't see that happening. I'm not sure. Again, a lot of this stuff could be looked at. There it is right there. I don't see that happening. You see it? Certainly not from here. It looks like it locked in there and locked in here. And this is the area where there's a little more connective tissue. And then they got it into the fleshy stuff. And that's what they made the walls out of here. They didn't want to get a lot of this stuff. And a lot of really bloody stuff. Every now and then they did, though. But this shows you where they started from, and over here is where they got their materials from. And I think this is not in the same place, but I'm not sure. I have it down as Bulgaria. I don't know. I think somebody sent me this and said it's in Bulgaria. So it's the same equipment as far as I'm concerned. The tire tracks are pretty close on this one. Let me go back to the other one. Maybe that'll be the key. You see how close those are together? Where were they? Well, it's hard to get a good scale. They could be the same width. Could be the same place. I don't know. Let's see. These are just somebody driving in the snow. Nice scene. This is tendon to muscle in a bird. Now, I don't know why I have this, but you can see, I'm sure this is the muscle. And for some reason, it's in these colors, or I don't know why. But you see how much abrupt transitions are, and they're in everything. Now, I'm sure this is the tendon. I'm saying tendon to muscle. That, to me, there's no question that's a muscle. So, it's just something to think about. More tendon to muscle to bone. Now these here, they say they're tire tracks or what. I don't know. They could be just natural ripples of tendon. These, I don't know either. Are they tire tracks? Hard to say. I don't know. Hard to say. Same thing there. Hard to say. More muscle to bone to tendon to da-da-da-da-da. Look at the size of those babies. That's a chunk of tendon. You see this right here? That's part of the abrupt transition, one of these flat little pieces that goes right across. Those are the separation layers. Look at the size of these things. Now, remember I said they try to make them out of a really flat, nice ponderosis tendon. Every now and then they get a bone. This one here, you see it up close? Okay, my friends, this is, I'm sorry about all the interruptions and all the other things. I'm sort of in and out of this, but I'm trying to keep a flow as best I can. And I believe this was where I think I left off. As you see right here, look at this very carefully. This is this bone, well, it's a bone. And this is either tendon or muscle around that bone. And here's the bone real close up. You see all the blood and everything that's in it? And here it is right here. Now this one up here, look at this thing. That's just about, it's like meaty. All right, they should be like this. These are not even real good ones. There's going to be sections that are just absolutely flawless, and then there's going to be ones that aren't so good. So this area here had tendons that were not all that good, and other areas had tendons that were just fabulous. And these are all the aponeurosis style tendon primarily. This one is not. That's, I believe, a little different because it's got a bone in it. The aponeurosis are flat sheets. Now, this, all I can say is this must have, in my opinion, been a test wall. And they used either different areas of tendons. These have the stalks sticking right out of them, where those would have gone down into the balls, which I showed you. I'm sure I showed you. Now, you see the one at the top there? You see that one? You could actually see that's the core of the strap, and you see the surrounding tube around it. That's how they work. That's exactly, and I've shown you that. I'm sure I showed you that many places. Now there's three of them here, This one's got a couple, and look like they had taken one off here, to my way of thinking. This is natural. This is the way the fabric sheets come, and they come in little blocky sheets. That way there they can stretch a little bit and move a little bit. They're sort of twisty. And then underneath you get into the flat sheets and here. So it looks to me like they've taken layers off here and there. I don't know. I can't think of any other reason for this. Why would they do that? To me, I think they were testing to see what's going to hold up best. But you see these little squares here? You can even actually see a little bit something over here too. And it looks like they scraped some off. This is a big piece. I don't know what there's no explanation for that I can come up with. All right, here's where the real fancy end of town was, where they put in the real fancy best tendon. Or it just happened to be that the best tendon was in this area and they just used it. Now, you can see there's all kinds of extra stuff going on up here. I don't know why they did that, and they did such an exquisite job down here. But here's the bumps. These are the bumps. And that's what happened. They just snapped them off. They just molded them, pinched them over. And that's what they did. They had to be moist when they put them in here. And they just put it up, and then they take another block, they put it in, and they would probably wiggle it down a little bit, maybe shave it off, or work it in with some kind of trowels or that type of thing. I don't know. But I do know that these are the bumps. And this is ponderosa tendon. And it forms because of the conditions that existed at that time, which is the heavy silicates, hot water, and a lot of salt water and flood. It was a flood, a long time duration underwater. Nucleophilic invasion made these things stabilize, and that's just what happened. Look at that. That is just stunning. But again, these are the bumps. Now, when you see this moss and the lichen and so forth growing, and then these different colors, they're feeding off of something that's still in there, some organic matter that's in there. Usually you see the red blood makes things grow really mossy, fluffy sort of moss. The black or vein blood makes things grow primarily lichen, and this may be from vein blood with some special chemistry in there, because the transition metals are what create all the chemistry basically, and the colors, and those are worked on by bacteria and enzymes, and apparently something's feeding off of that likes whatever this is, the biology that's in those rocks. There's biology in these. Now check this out. This was a craftsman. Look at this. But to me, it indicates that it had to be moist when they put it in, and they could have cut these out in like little cookie cutter looking things and then put them up there. Somebody was really tricky. You just lay out a mat and you draw all these little designs in it and make mold and just mold it right out of that stuff and then put it up. Or these could have even been scribed. This may not even be separate pieces. I don't know. You could put this up and then just impress it, and that's what you'd end up with. Because it's very hard to see any really solid seams in here. I looked, the best one I could see is here. And that could be just, if somebody was really tricky, they would put a knife way down in there and then just dress it up, and you'd say, ooh, there's a crack in there. There's a lot of people are tricky. Now that's not tendon. I think this is muscle, really, and I think that was just muscle, and it's cut straight across here. And those are all natural, and nobody put those there in blocks, because muscle looks just like that. I got to be honest with you. I don't know for sure whether this is tendon or whether this is muscle. And the one in Rome, that wall in Rome, is is like this. So they're one or the other, but I think they're both the same, whatever that might be. Now that one there, I don't know whether it's muscle or tendon, but it appears to be a bundle of something. When I see the green, really mossy looking stuff, I always think of red blood. Red blood would be in muscle and not so much in tendon. All right, check this out. This had me stumped. You see this green? It looks like somebody painted it with all fluffy green stuff. It's all mossy. And then you get that it's white looking, and it's just the same thing down here again. This guy's standing there looking at it saying, what the hell is going on? Well, I believe these are tendons. And normally a tendon would have the white type of lichen. But I see here, I don't know if you can see that or not. That to me looks like it's red blood. And red blood always grows really mossy moss, fluffy red stuff. And I think there might be some more red blood right there. So there's some kind of red blood going in there. And then down here is your normal, tendon. It doesn't have a lot of blood. And then down here must be another spot where there's blood coming out. That's the only thing I can think of. But at first, when I was looking at these other shots, I was thinking, well, even tendons will grow a lot of fluffy moss in this real wet environment. But that just doesn't appear to be the case. That lichen seems to just love the black blood, and there's two different styles of biology eating away at that stone. And that's what it's doing. It's surviving on whatever is inside that stone. And it's biology, and some of it's going to be blood. And I've shown this a bazillion times. That's the tendon, that's the muscle, that's where the bone was. This is the same as this, only the bone is not shown. And I can show where the tendon locked in. Like I said, shown it many, many times. The red indicates blood. The brown indicates it's a tendon, no blood. Like I said, I got interrupted a million times. I just want to be sure we remember all this stuff. This is a muscle mountain. That's the guy's van. And this is connective tissue. And the reddish stuff here is the stuff that pulls the sarcomeres in and out, and it's just eroded out of the muscle. And those erode out easily. The connective tissue is much different. So like I showed you the guy squirting water on it, this is the same kind of stuff as that, in my opinion, and it's just, they just cut it flat like that, and they'll break in blocks just like that. Whoops. All right, this is from very poorly. This stone is not of good quality. Let's just go with that. All right, these are, whoops. All right, these are some tendon straps, and this one here had some red blood in it, just like my tendon strap here has red blood in there. And if this was like this, I broke this. It was a bigger, long piece, and if I had this out in where it was continuously moist, it would also grow this green mossy stuff. But it loves this red blood. It loves it. And this died laying this way. I don't know if you can see the different texture, but see the red part here? I can see it. I don't know about you. And it collects at the bottom because it died flat like this. And it's the same sort of stuff as this. Now, you see the other ones with the white? That's where there's black blood. All right? Or it could also be due to the fascia, which is the coating. I got to think about that a little more, because it could have a lot to do with the fascia and not always the black blood. Although I do see it growing around where I can see the blood vessels, and they are the veins, so we got to do some thinking. All right, remember this shot, because I'm going to show you something, and I think it is natural. It looks crazy, But I'll explain why I think it is natural when we get to it. But remember these blocks, how perfect they are. This is electron microscope shot of muscle. All right, here's the beauty of this whole thing. I just showed you what muscle blocks can look like. And at first you'd look at that and you'd say somebody quarried this and cut these squared off blocks and all that. Well, they come exactly squared off. Now, not only that, you see these holes down here? I would assume these are blood vessels, and these here are either the lymphatic system or veins that's remove blood. And these blocks are those sarcomeres, those little tiny sarcomeres. I know it sounds crazy, but the beauty of it now is you could get down here and look at this and examine what is the chemistry here. Is there red blood and is there black blood? You know, the hematite versus the magnetite, and then look at all of the anatomical features that now can be looked at and thought of, and nobody's ever even considered to look at them that way before. So we're in a new era. You see that? The reason that waterfall is coming out here because there's a huge artery in here. You see this red? Again, whenever you see red, there's going to be some artery real close, and it's just pouring out of here because it's being pumped up from just tubing that runs up in here. That's just the way nature worked. And you see like this red stuff over here? These are all tissues. And here's the black, which is the vein blood. You know, you got a mix here and there of both, but whenever you see a lot of red in one area, there's probably a huge artery coming up here just above the top, and it's just flowing out. And there's other ones that are just like that too, huge. And during certain times, they just gush water out of there if the water in below is pressurized enough. Okay, this is from Dream Time, and this is tendon abrupt transition wrinkle zone. And that's right where it was cut at the top, and that's the real nasty little wrinkle, and then it's just sort of waved down like as you're seeing it. All right, I've shown a lot of muscle, I've shown a lot of tendon. This is live and it's a little grisly, but this is what it is. There is a bazillion little muscle fibers in there. You see how perfectly red it is? There's no white in there at all to speak of. But there is connective tissue in there, but it's not like the tendon. Muscle is just very weak, and all the little sarcomeres, those little blocks I showed you. Now, this is tendon. You see all these little tiny fibers, and when I say tiny, you look at that and you say, well, there's one fiber. No, there's probably 1,000 of them right there. There's so many fibers, there's not even enough numbers in the numbering system to cover it. They're just unbelievable, and they are tough. When you see white, there's no blood in there, basically. It's just an inert, it's like a heavy-duty rubber band. Now, and then they will strap off into real, just total straps. And then there's other places where there'll be places just straight across like this, they'll start red. And I've shown those are abrupt transitions. There's really none in this that I can see. But abrupt transitions, there are everywhere. It depends on where it is in the body. All right, when I showed you the bundles of tendon, there's an outside layer, and that's this. And you almost never see it. You just see these, because that breaks off. These don't hold on to things real well. They're meant to slide up and down all over the place, and that just falls off very easily. But in this case, we can see it would have wrapped this whole tendon bundle. And I can't remember, endothelium, I can't remember. It's the outside layer of tissue that coats the tendon fibers. Okay, I guess I'll leave it at this. I think I've shown enough to basically prove the things that I've been saying. And as far as that skin goes, it's this right here. So it's the epitendon. It's the outside layer that coats the fibers, which is on the inside. All right, so that's just the epitendon. Normally that doesn't stay. And then you see all these blocks. Now again, muscles and tendons are built very similarly, only and they are all in blocks like that, little blocks. But the tendons don't give. The muscles have what they have. They have like little pinchers that go in like they call them sarcomeres. And they have like a red side and a dark side and connective tissue. That again was what you find, and if you go out looking and you see something like that, look and see carefully, look at carefully, see if you can see these kind of features around the seams. If you do, that means that was one big mat of tissue. And in this case, it was a tendon that attached to muscle, and the muscle's gone. So I don't know what else I can say about this. Oh yeah, I was just at the end, at the T's, and I went, the end of the tendons, and I got into terracotta warriors. I had forgotten all about this. I looked at this, and I couldn't find anything whatsoever, nothing that was significant. Although I did find this, and I wonder what the hell's going on with that. You see that one right there? What is inside that creature now, or statue? Now, what about that one right there? What about that shoulder? And I see coloration in there that, is red, which could, I'm just guessing. And then there's another couple of shots I saw that, well, there's actually just one more that makes any sense whatsoever to be possibly. And they don't have to all be, have people inside them, but they might have some that do. Look at this guy here. What's that doing there? That would, to me, indicate like blood leaking out through there. And the same thing with some of these black spots. They just, like the nose and everything, these are kind of fleshy tissues that would change colors like that. And look at this. I found that kind of interesting too. Like, is the hand broken off right there and it was attached right here? Was it just attached into something where they like screwed it in, or was it a bone coming out of there and broke off? You have to look at this stuff really carefully. Look at the side of his face. What's going on there? This is what I look at as the real details. And then, maybe some of them were actual creatures. Because I found statues, no question whatsoever, zero question. They have been alive at one time, or were, just somehow petrified, And Ovid said they could do this. Ovid said they could. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you what Ovid said. All right, everything I've been saying about the whole landscape being creatures. Listen to this. Ovid, who was a Greek writer, and he wrote books after all of these books. He wrote 15 different books, and it starts right out. Metamorphosis is the transformation, is an underlying theme amongst the episodes of Metamorphosis. Ovid raises its significance explicitly in the first lines of the poem, of his work, and this is a very, very detailed work. He says, "In nova fert animus mutatus desera formos corpora." I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. Something changed into something new. Accompanying this theme is often violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. They're turning people into creatures and into mountains and so forth. it's crazy, but that's exactly what he wrote about. And he wrote, like I say, 15 books, and they were serious books. The creation, ages of mankind, flood, Deucalion, who was Noah, Pyrrha, who was Noah's wife, Apollo, Daphne, Phaeton, Callisto, Raven, all these ancient names that you heard, they throw them out here and there. And he's got the daughters of Zeus and talking about Venus and all of these things, Jason and the Argonauts and all the ancient little tidbits that you've heard about, but he puts them into detail. And this was a really, really, really serious work. All right, and it was, I guess they called it as serious as any work that had ever been done. 11,995 lines, 250 myth stories that weren't really, as far as I'm concerned, myth. And it was one of the most influential works in Western culture. And it's powerful. All right, don't forget. Jesus said, search until you find. When you find, you will be disturbed. When you are disturbed, you will marvel. And then you will be it says you'll rule over all. Now, it also says, Jesus said in number 56, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. Everything I'm showing you, the whole world is a corpse. And whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. Now, in number 80, he reiterates it. Number 80 says, Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found the body. He who has found the body is superior to the world. All right, and in number 50, he says that we are light. We come from the light. And that's another thing that I have discovered as well. Everything is made of dipoles. We are the light. If they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord and established itself and became manifest through their image. That's the only place that can happen is the sun. That's the only place it gives off radiation of its own accord in this neighborhood. If they say to you, is it you? No, say, we are its children. We are the elect of the living Father. All right, we are the light. We are the children of the light. What is the sign of your Father in you? Say to them, it is movement and repose. That's exactly what happens. Light can do all kinds of moving and shaking and burning and doing all that, and it can just lay there and do nothing. Because light, everything is made out of light. And then, as I told you in the beginning, this is a Nag Hammadi test. These are Gnostic texts, but this is supposedly written by Doubting Thomas, who was Jesus' scribe. And he said, write down all the things that I say and document them, and he did. And it says, if you find the interpretation of these sayings, you will not experience death. Well, this is the one I'm talking about. Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all. And then he says, just recognize what is in your sight, what was hidden from you. And it's literally being hidden from you. It's being right now hidden from you. The people I'm talking about, I've presented it to all of them. They cannot be that incompetent that none of this stuff sinks in. So it's literally being hidden from you. And it will become plain to you just by looking. Recognize what's in your sight. Just look. It'll be plain. There's nothing hidden which will not become manifest, which means it's just out in the open. It's just there. Everybody can see it. It's just how your mind can handle it. That's the key. All right. I love you all, and I find this stuff extremely interesting. And eternity lasts a long time. And Jesus said he came to cast fire upon a world, and I am guarding it until it blazes. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, she's on fire now. She's roasting. All right, so I love you all. Good luck, and thanks for watching. Spread the word around. Don't be afraid to talk. It's important that this is understood, and we understand our past, and we don't just accept these things that are being told to us. And I mean, the assaults that I have suffered recently for getting a little bit more vocal, because I can see it's just going nowhere. Nobody cares about the truth. It's the ones that are teaching you, they don't care about the truth. They care about getting funding, figuring out where they're going to get their next grant money from and how many dollars they can increase the tuition by. And the poor kids are being taken advantage of. Unless you're going for a trade and getting something where you can go out and get a good job and it's specialized. It's not like a general education. If they say you have to take geology and chemistry and physics and all the other things before you can go take your special course, that's just not right, because none of that stuff is right. It's not right anymore. All right, I love you all. Thank you. Goodbye.